Hello everybody, TK here, and welcome back to the That Time I Got Reincarnated Slime Ultimate Review Series. The first episode was so well received. Oh my god, I had no idea that this was actually gonna be like a popular thing. And this was something that I was making fully to just give back to this show, but oh my god, the first episode got so much love. I can't believe it. I want this. When this whole thing is complete, I want this to be my magnum opus. I want the playlist that this is going to be, where it's the whole freaking series and you can just press play and basically just watch a fucking like 3-hour long review of the entirety of Tensora. It's going to be my most ambitious project by far as a YouTuber, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But real quick, before we get into season 1, the part 2, I forgot a bunch of stuff from the first review that I absolutely had to put into this review because, oh dear god, in my defense, I'm not mad at myself for forgetting any of this stuff because there's so much to cover in the first part of the first core of That Time I Got Reincarnated Slime, and from here on out, I think all the rest of the cores are a lot more straightforward than part 1. You know, part 1 we're really just getting all the cast introduced, because we obviously get more cast as the show goes on, but part 1 is really where we get the majority of the cast, and you know, it's where we start building Tempest and all that. We are introduced to all of yeah, you get the point. There's a lot to cover in part 1. You know, we have to go all the way through Satoru Mikami's reincarnation. We have to go through the stuff with Shizu, lots of stuff. But from here on out, pretty much all of the remaining cores of the show pretty much consists of 1 to 2 arcs, and I think it's a lot easier to talk about. So hopefully that's going to be the case here, because I'm going to kick this off by talking about a few things that I completely forgot to mention, and I'm so sorry I did. But first off, oh my god, this is something that I literally forget to talk about literally every single time I have sucked this show off. Every single time I have sucked this show off, I've literally turned the camera off and been like, I forgot again! God damn it! It's not, no more, not forgetting. Here it is, finally gonna talk about it. The art style of this show is absolutely fucking gorgeous. I love the way the characters are designed in this show. Look at this poster back here. Look at my Tensor poster right here. Look at how magical all of these characters are drawn. Look at these sharp lines right here. The way the eyes are drawn specifically. Look at this. Let me show you something right here. Look at this. Look at this character design. Look at these beautiful, beautiful angles of all of these characters. The way their eyes are drawn, every bit of their facial features, just everything about them, and the way that they move so fluidly in the show. There's this one segment of the first ending of season 1, part 1, where Rimuru turns back into his human form and starts like running up this grass hill, and it's just, oh my god, it just perfectly encaptures how fucking gorgeous the art style of this show is. It's crazy unique, and I just love it. I just love how it looks. It's just beautiful in my personal opinion, and it's so unique and so visually striking. And I just absolutely love it. The art style is yet another thing about this show that is just perfect. Maybe my favorite anime art style of all time. Is it just because it's in this show? Maybe, but I absolutely adore the art style regardless. The next thing I wanted to talk about is all the hilarious, witty writing I forgot to talk about in the first review. There's so many hysterical moments of this show that just feel so just perfectly worked into the show, and they're just absolutely hysterical. And it's just the writing, the way that the characters are written in this show, just the way Rimuru speaks. He says so many things that like only like a millennial would say, and it's so unbelievably hilarious every single time. Like, for example, okay, so I talked about this episode in the first review. The episode Gabiru is here. I believe it's episode 11. It might be episode 10. I think it's episode 11 though. And there is a scene in that where after we have the first instance of Shion sucking at cooking, we have this scene where Gabiru shows up in the village, and Ranga has Gobta fight Gabiru in order to see if they will get somewhere. Basically, if Ranga's like, if you can defeat Gobta, then I will consider like joining you or whatever, knowing full well that, you know, he's obviously never going to betray Rimuru. Oh my god, I haven't talked about Ranga yet. Anyway, so yes, and then Gobta is facing down is facing down Gabiru, and Rimuru says to him, if you win, I'll have Kurobe make you a special weapon. And he's like, well, that motivates me. And then he goes, if you lose, you have to eat Shion's cooking. And like his like eyes go like light, he goes like Super Saiyan, and is like, I will destroy this lizard. It is so absolutely hysterical. When this show wants to be the funniest thing you've ever seen, it is. It just is. Another one, a perfect one that I always love to talk about with this is in the Orc Disaster Fight episode. You have a Gelmud like approaching Rimuru, and he's like talking to him, and then Rimuru just decks him in the face, and he comes back and he's like, hold up, let's talk just a little bit. And then Rimuru slugs him in the face again, and he's just on the ground laying there, and it's just silence for a couple seconds, and he's just like, ah! It's the funniest fucking thing you have ever seen in your life, and there's so many moments like that. Like another one that I think is actually in this part we're gonna talk about, but I'll bring it up right now. There's a scene where they're talking about a certain monster in the world, a very, very, very powerful monster, and Rimuru asks Benimaru what this creature is, and he goes, well, simply put, it's a monster. And then Rimuru's like, thanks for that in-depth explanation. And then he continues on. The writing is just so witty and so hilarious, and I just absolutely love it. So that was the second thing. And the final thing, I can't believe I forgot this. I can't believe I left out Best Boy, Ranga. I just skipped right over the Direwolves and didn't even talk about one of the best characters of the entire show. Ranga is the goodest boy to ever exist. This is Ranga right here, the direwolf with the unicorn horn. He's the leader of the Tempest Star Wolves, and he is just maybe the most wholesome character in the show. In the first episode where Ranga gets his name, after receiving his name, he wags his tail so much that it destroys a building that they were building in Tempest, and like a huge portion of the forest as well. It is so fucking wholesome. This character is so wonderful, and that never changes. I just adore Ranga. And then the way he develops as well, Ranga actually ends up getting the ability to like hide in Rimuru's shadow. So Rimuru will like go off somewhere, and it'll just be him. And then if you were to like get confronted, or say he like because he also uses Ranga as like his steed kind of, he just has Ranga like come out of the shadow, and then he hops on him, and he like, you know, rides where he needs to go. Or Ranga is also just ridiculously powerful in and of himself and can be an assistant for Rimuru. Ranga is absolutely fucking awesome. I love Ranga. The reason I don't have a Ranga figure right here is because the Banpresto one looks really basic and boring in my opinion, and then they just released a new one that I do really like, but he's permanently stuck in this like attack pose, which is cool and all, but I really want a Ranga that I can like pose, man. I really, really, really want a Ranga that I can pose and I can put my Rimuru on it. I'll probably just break down and buy that old one eventually, because I need a Ranga. Sorry I keep pausing, but it is so hot in here. I have to cool off every now and then because I get way too sweaty. But I don't want to just turn my fan on because that will hurt the audio of this video, and this entire series needs to be perfect. So, with that being said, we have talked about all of the things I forgot to talk about in the first review. Let's jump into Season 1, Part 2. And, okay, let's just get into it. The very first thing that happens, actually this kind of happens at the very end of Tensor Part 1, but I felt like it made a lot more sense to address it in Part 2, because to me this kind of feels like one of the biggest aspects of Part 2, and that is of course the creation of Tempest. From at this point, at the end of Tensor season, at the end of Part 1, we actually get a bit of like a time skip, actually, where we actually watch the entirety the entire empire that Rimuru has built with the orcs, the ogres, the lizard men, all of them, all of their help combined. They build Tempest, which is a literal country, and this country is meant to be a place where all the species of this forest that have been fighting, that are at war with each other. And you know what I talked about in Part 1, how Veldor's disappearance really affected like the ecosystem here and all of these species like wanting to survive and needing food and all that. Tempest is Rimuru builds this country for all of these monsters to coexist peacefully. And this is one of the things that makes Rimuru the greatest anime character of all time as far as I'm concerned. I know so many people are gonna be like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't fucking care. What fucking anime, can you name an anime character that built a fucking country? Can some of the stuff that Rimuru's going to do in the future as well that we haven't talked about in this review series yet, so I can't bring up yet, but yeah. When did your favorite character ever build a fucking country? We're not talking about a little tiny city. We are talking about a literal country that gets put on the map of this world. I absolutely adore everything about the creation of Tempest, and I will address real quick that after Tempest is built, this is actually the point where you actually would want to go watch Slime Diaries, which is a little spin-off series. Now, I absolutely love Slime Diaries, and I will be reviewing this after I have reviewed the entirety of That Time I Got Reincarnated Slime. Of course, this will be part of the series, but it's really just a slice of life show. It's very fun, but again, I'll talk about that when I review it. But yes, but you had that, and after that, that is when we're actually going to continue here. So, Tempest has been built. This is now where everybody lives, where Rimuru lived, this is where Rimuru lives. He's given this home to all of the orcs, all the hundreds of thousands of orcs that were starving and fighting for the forest. The ogres, of course, who lost their village, the dire wolves as well that lost their village, the goblins who were surviving through the skin of their teeth, basically. It is absolutely, it's so unbelievably wholesome, and I just remember so many amazing scenes in Slime Diaries where they just do so much with this entire concept of Rimuru literally having this entire country. It's so brilliant. It's one of the things that makes this character absolutely god tier in my personal opinion. I absolutely adore everything about the entirety of creating Tempest for all of these species to coexist, because Rimuru at this point is powerful enough to where he could literally do whatever he wanted. He could easily just jump to a very, very certain event that happens in part 2 that leads to a very, very massive change in Rimuru. But he doesn't. He builds a country for this forest to survive. He goes out of his way to bring peace and harmony to this forest and all of these species. And I cannot stress enough how much I love this fucking character. This is another thing that I didn't talk about much in part 1 because I wanted to talk about this as we go through the series, and I mainly wanted to talk about this in season 2 part 1 when we review. Rimuru is such an incredible fucking character. Rimuru is literally my favorite fictional character of all time, and in my personal opinion, he's the best anime character of all time. He's the best fictional character of all time. This character, everything that this character does, everything that this character stands by, literally from start to finish, every second this character is on screen, every time this character does some hilarious line or whatever, or just anytime this character just bees this character, which is pretty much every second that he's on screen, he captivates your heart. You love this guy so much to the point that he does, all I'll say in this review is that in season 2, part 1, he does a very, 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 very bad thing. Very bad thing. And yet, literally everybody who I know who has watched him do that very, 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 very bad thing, we still love him. We still love him. We love him even more after he did that very, very, very bad thing, which we will talk about. But okay, yes, Rimuru is he's a god. This is why I always say Rimuru is my god, because I can't think of a single character that I love more than this guy, dude. I absolutely love everything about this character. Him creating this place for all of these monsters to live peacefully. Just his writing, his voice actor, Brittany Karbowski, she is an absolute treasure. I love her so much. Rimuru is an S+ tier anime character. And speaking of S+ tier anime characters, let's move on to the introduction of Malim Nava. Malim is the very first demon lord who we are introduced in this show. Malim Nava, Dragonoid the Destroyer. And she is just wonderful. One of the only characters that rivals Rimuru in this show for my favorite character of the show. It's not really close whatsoever, but Malim is one of my favorite characters of the show, and this character is almost as lovable as Rimuru. Once again, Tensua works its magic. As soon as Malim is introduced, you fucking love her. The first scene that she's introduced, she's at this table watching this, that she actually watched the fight through this, crystal ball that Clayman had, and as soon as she sees him, she's like, interesting! I want to see it! It's absolutely hilarious. It's so wholesome. And then as soon as like, yeah, right when we go from there, we cut to Malim going to Rimuru, going to this village and confronting him. And then they have this quick little fight and everything. And then at the end of this fight, which Rimuru wins by giving her honey, because of course these demon lords don't know what food. This is yet another thing I love about Rimuru, by the way, doing some like Senku Ishigami shit, like using his knowledge of his previous life to like erect buildings and make food and recipes and stuff like that. Another thing I just absolutely love about the dude so much. But yes, he actually beats Malim because at this point Rimuru is not strong enough to take on a demon lord. Malim is over 10 times stronger than him in her powered down form, because Malim actually has a much stronger form that she's only taken once in this show so far. So yeah, he is nowhere near strong enough to beat her. But in order to make her yield and stop fighting, he gives her honey for the first time. And then basically at this point, Malim and Rimuru kind of become friends, and Malim, the way that this whole friendship kind of blooms is that Malim kind of like forces Rimuru to say that he is her best friend, but it's so wholesome that you absolutely feel it. You absolutely feel like Rimuru is like, yeah, this is my bestie Foresti. And it's so wholesome. I absolutely love it. And just talking about Malim, I can't think of many characters even outside this show that are as lovable as Malim. She is just adorable. There's so many moments in this first little bit with Malim that'll just melt your heart. Like, for one, like she's like talking to Rimuru about becoming a demon lord, and he's like, doesn't that just mean you're bored? And she just goes the look on her face is just this is the most priceless thing ever. It'll have you on the fucking floor laughing. And then there's this part where like Gabiru comes in, again flexing this incredibly hilarious witty writing that this show has, where Gabiru comes in and is like, who is this little runt, not knowing who she is, and she just punches him and he just goes flying down the streets of Tempest. And then she walks up to him and is like, you want to say that again? And Gabiru is like, look, there's father waving at me from across the river to the great beyond. And then Rimuru just goes, your father's still alive, you dork. Shit like that, dude. That is why I love this show. That is why this show is infinitely better than every single other anime out there. JJK, Demon Slayer, get the fuck out of here. Because you don't have scenes that literally hurt my sides. I'm laughing so hard, while also having incredible characters that I literally fall head over heels in love with seconds after they're introduced, like the one that we literally just got introduced. This is why slime is the best fucking thing ever. This first like 4 episodes of this part where we're introduced to Malim is literal Euphoria in a bottle. Watching these first 4 episodes of Slime Part 2 is literally like having a bottle of literal like bottled up Euphoria, and when you press play, you're opening the cap and you're just However, before we keep going and we move into the Charybdis arc, it is time for the opening review, Megura Mono by Takuma Terashima. This is an opening that had to grow on me, actually. Now, honestly, so did Nameless Story, but I have fallen so in love with Nameless Story at this point that I don't even remember ever not loving it. Oh my god. This is one that actually did have to grow on me, but I have listened to Megura Mono so many fucking times at this point that I absolutely adore this song. It is so unbelievably amazing. This is actually probably the most wholesome song of the show. It's just incredible, man. All the lyrics, once again, are incredible. One of like, just to name one of my favorite lyrics, let me think here for a second. We are all travelers, each carrying the seed of hope. Continuing just this absolutely perfect music that this show has. Like I said in the first review, the music, the soundtrack of this show is literally top 3 reasons why this show is the best thing ever, dude. It's one of the best things about this show, and this opening, Megura Mono by the absolutely incredible Takuma Terashima, is no exception. I am so sad that we have not gotten another Takuma Terashima song in this show. There is one more that's it for the mobile game that is a duet with him and the girl who does the Slime Diaries opening, and it's really good. If you haven't listened to it, I would definitely recommend it. But I really hope in season 3 they get Takuma Terashima back for at least one song, man, because he really does make some of my favorite music. I mean, he only has 2 songs as opposed to like True and Ron, who have made so many, and Midna Rain is even getting up there now. But I really want this guy to come back, man. I absolutely love this dude, and Nameless Story is my favorite song of this show. I love every single one, and I do think some of them are superior, but Nameless Story is my favorite one because when I hear Nameless Story, I think of this show. When I think of this show, I hear Nameless Story. But oh my god, the instrumental in this fucking opening, the way that this opening starts with like this little piano solo is absolutely beautiful. And then the way it ends with this really awesome solo as well, it's incredible. This opening is just as fucking phenomenal as every other song in this show. It is yet another S tier for this show's soundtrack and the show overall, I guess, because the show is literally S tier from start to finish. Actually, what am I talking about? The show is S plus times infinity tier from start to finish. So with that, let's jump into the Charybdis arc now. So the Charybdis arc is our next arc, and this consists of a ancient monster of this world known as Charybdis, who is an extremely powerful demon lord level monster. And this is actually, this creature is brought back because of Clayman and the Moderate Harlequin Alliance. So Clayman is actually part of the Moderate Harlequin Alliance. I didn't say that in part 1, in the part 1 review, but Clayman is a member of the Moderate Harlequin Alliance with Laplace, Footman, and Tyr. And there are other members as well. I think there's plenty more that we actually still haven't seen in the show yet. It's a big deal, the Moderate Harlequin Alliance. And they make this creature come back to life because, again, it's yet another attempt to try and take the forest for themselves, to take it away from Rimuru, basically. Because at this point, Rimuru has claimed it. He's even actually, there's a character named Trainee who is a dryad of the forest who has literally given him the forest, basically. Made it like the chancellor of the forest, basically. The lord of the great forest of Jura. So, at this point, it's basically Rimuru's forest, and Clayman is trying to take it away from him. And I'm not gonna lie to you, actually. You're all gonna be really surprised when I say this. But the entirety of the Charybdis arc is actually easily the weakest part of the show. It's still amazing because there's so many hilarious and amazing moments between like Malim and Rimuru in here, and the first member of the Beasketiers, which is introduced in here, the 3 Beasketiers, which are Phobio, the Black Leopard Fang, and then 2 other characters who we will talk about in depth in future installments of this series, but we only get Phobio right now. I like Phobio enough, but he is my least favorite of the 3 Beasketiers. But yes, the entire thing of Charybdis being this threat really doesn't feel like much because when you get to when he is defeated, Malim just whoops his ass. Like they spend a ton of time. Like Rimuru thinks it's his fault that this thing is here because it's coming after Veldora, which is obviously inside of Rimuru's slime stomach. But in fact, it's actually Phobio who was tricked by the Moderate Harlequin Alliance to giving his soul to be incarnated into Charybdis, which was going after Malim because of an event that transpired in the first 4 episodes, or first like 2 or 3 episodes of part 2. So once he finds out that he's actually after Malim and not him, he just lets Malim fight him. So we basically spend like half an episode of Rimuru just like hopelessly trying to kill this thing and not getting anywhere. There are some pretty hilarious standout moments and lines in it, but then he gives up and lets Malim kill it, and Malim literally just fucking destroys the thing instantaneously. Once again, showing how much stronger Malim is to Rimuru at this point. And that's really it. There's so many hilarious moments in this I can't even count. One of my favorites is the Arm-Nation of Dwargon sends help to Rimuru. So King Gazel Dwargo sends help to Rimuru, but they get there. But after the fight, he's like, "How did you kill it? How did you kill it?" And then Malim is like, "I killed it. I'm Malim Nava." And the guy doesn't believe that it's actually Malim because Malim is this like ridiculously big deal in this world. Like she is one of the very first demon lords and one of the strongest demon lords, of which there are 13 demon lords. No, there's 10. Is there 10? Now there's 8, so now I've forgotten how many there were. Yeah, it's 10. I don't know where 13 came from. The 10 great demon lords. Malim is actually one of the very first ones, so she's a big deal. So this guy doesn't believe that it's her, and she's like, I'm telling you I killed it! I blew Charybdis to pieces! Just the way she says it. Kristen McGuire is yet another incredible voice actor in this. Oh my god, how could I never talk about the voice acting in this show? Michelle Rojas, who voices Shio, and she's absolutely incredible. Again, Brittany Karbowski, she's incredible. We're gonna talk about this little fucker pretty soon here, but her voice actor, Jad Saxton, is also fucking incredible as well. Absolutely love Gazel Dwargo's voice actor as well. He is amazing. Gabi Ru's voice actor. It's all just perfectly cast in my opinion. Again, this dub is so unbelievably perfect. But that is the Charybdis arc. It's a very, very easy arc to talk about, but now we get into the real meat of this part, and that is the Shizu's students arc. Now, before I get into this, I want to address something actually. So the Shizu students arc, on my first watch of this show, I did not like this arc. This arc actually almost made me drop the show. I had heard how good season 2 was, so I did not drop it. But I came close because I didn't enjoy this arc on the first time. And the reason I didn't enjoy it was because it took away all of the previously loved characters. But if you're like that and you didn't like this arc on your first watch, every single time I have rewatched this show, which like I said, I have watched this show at least 6 or 7 times by now, I have absolutely loved this arc. This Shizu students arc, I have loved this arc every single time. And it's just because I've had all the time in the world with all these characters. And that first time when I saw this arc where Rimuru goes away from these characters to go with this entire other group of characters that at the time I didn't really like and I didn't really care about, which we're going to talk about, just didn't sit with me. And I did not like this arc on the first watch. And if you go and watch my Figma Rimuru review, I even talk about that very briefly. But I have come to absolutely love this arc. But real quick before we continue, I want to talk about the ending. Little Soldier is the ending of this. This is my least favorite song of the entire show, but I have come to like this song quite a bit actually. It's not it's a perfectly fine song. Again, this soundtrack is absolutely amazing. I do love this song, but this is in my opinion the weakest song of the show so far. And this song is actually the only song that has been made by this artist, Azusa Takoboro, I think is her name. Yeah, I could be having that wrong, but I think it's her name. But this is the only song she has done for the show at this point. So I don't think it's an unpopular opinion that this is my least favorite song of the show. I do like it though. I have grown to like this song. But I don't really have any standout things about the song. I do like the ending of the song, and I absolutely love the visuals of this ending, especially this little part where this giant fish comes out and tries to attack one of the Shizu students, and then Rimuru comes in and kills the thing and cooks it up, and then all the characters come in for this huge picnic, and that's just Tensora at its absolute peak. That's the kind of stuff that just gives you fucking life when you watch it, man. So yeah, absolutely phenomenal ending, just like all the other songs in this. But again, this is my personal least favorite. We're just talking about a very tiny, minor little difference between every other God tier song in this show. But yes, let's now talk about the Shizu students arc. So basically, this arc is Rimuru completing Shizu's final wish. Shizu had this little group of students who were all summons. And as I talked about in the first episode of the series, summons means that you're on a clock because your Magicules can't keep up with your new Magicules, so it will kill you eventually, unless you can get a spirit in there to balance out your Magicules. But again, there's also things with that as well. And these 5 students that Shizu had are in danger of this, and they all know it. Like, one of the kids is even like, we all know we're gonna kick the bucket eventually, but Rimuru sets out to go and finish this, to fulfill Shizu's final wish of saving these kids. So that's what he does. This is also where we're introduced to Yuki Kagarazuka, who at this point, we don't know very much anything about, but I do know that this guy is going to be a very big deal going forward, and I do believe he is definitely a player in the modern Harlequin Alliance as well. But at this point, I do not know a lot about Yuki Kagarazuka other than he's a trading little scumbag. Although there is a really great scene in here where Rimuru actually learns that he can create manga, and he actually bribes this guy to let him teach Shizu students by giving him like a mountain of manga from all the series, because he's also an otherworlder as well. So yeah, there's that, and this becomes a thing in Tempest where they actually have like manga, and one of the reasons why there's so many people who want to live there because Rimuru has made manga again for them. Absolutely hysterical, man. Such a wonderful little aspect of the show as well. And yes, there's a great scene with that as well. So he is able to teach Shizu students, and now he is setting out to save them. He wants to save Shizu students, obviously from being killed by being summoned. And in order to do that, what he does is he takes them to this labyrinth where there is spirits, and his goal is to give them all lesser spirits to balance out their Magicules. He doesn't want to give them something too strong, because then he's going to get something with Shizu again where the spirit was so strong, because Euphoria was a very powerful spirit, and it was able to incarnate into her it was very easy for Euphoria to take over her body eventually. So he wants to balance them out with smaller spirits, and the way he does it is he actually brings them all together and takes like a whole bunch of spirits actually, and using like Great Sage, which I realize I haven't talked about whatsoever yet, but I don't really have time to do that right now. I'll try and talk about Great Sage in the next part of the series. But yes, he uses his ability to take a bunch of spirits and balance out these kids' magicules. Now, before we end this up, there is no way I am not talking about Romulus. Romulus is one of my favorite characters of the entire show. Romulus, voiced by Jad Saxton, the Pixie of a Labyrinth. This little fucker right here is one of my favorite characters in the show, because this is one of the Tensor characters that literally every single second this character is on screen, you have this massive smile from ear to ear. And every single time this character says literally anything, you are just on cloud nine. This character is so fucking funny. Like, there's this scene where where Rimuru is talking with her, and they bring up Demon Lord Leon Cromwell, who was actually the person, I never talked about him in part 1, but he's the person who put Ifrit in Shizu. But they're talking about him, and Romulus is like, that Leon, he's got a big mouth. I'd take him out at one punch, I would. It's the funniest thing ever. And somehow she has like this big old thing of cookies, and she's just eating them, and she's like, tasty, tasty. Like, this character is so goddamn wonderful. I love everything about Romulus, and she just gets better as the series goes on. And it's all thanks to Jad Saxton's absolutely incredible performance. Jad Saxton, such a legendary English dub voice actor, and Romulus may actually be my absolute favorite use of her character, even over Kana from Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Romulus literally gives me life when she's on screen, man. But with that, we come to the final bit of the Shizu Students arc, where Rimuru says goodbye, finishes up with them, and yes, leaves them to a different teacher named Professor Tiss, and we move on. But before we move on, this show's got one more blast of euphoria for you, because we get a montage of the entire show up to this point. And normally you'd be like, oh, montage, I don't need to see that, I literally just watched the show. But this montage is complemented by the song Lead the Way by True. And this song is so goddamn beautiful that it makes this montage a highlight of season 1. Every single time this montage comes with this song, Lead the Way by True, it almost brings me to tears. It is so absolutely incredible. This may be the best montage of any piece of fiction I have ever watched, because True just went so fucking hard on the song for this little montage. I can imagine the meeting that went down with this. You didn't have to go this hard, True. It's just a little montage that we're just throwing in of all the events up to this point. You didn't have to make me cry. It's such a beautiful fucking song. I love everything about it. It actually might be my favorite True song. I mean, we've still got like 3 more to talk about, and they're all fucking incredible, but this might be my personal favorite. It is so goddamn beautiful. And again, this montage is a fucking highlight for me. But with that brings me to the end of part 2. There you have it. That one was very, very straightforward to talk about. We only really have to talk about, like the introduction of Malim, the creation of Tempest, the Shizu Students arc, and the Charybdis arc. Very straightforward, but of course, if you know, the next up is season 2, part 1. Woohoo! It might be, I'm not going to say for sure about this, I'm not going to confirm this, but it might be a little while before you see the next episode, because this one has to be perfect. This has to be a perfect episode of the series. I cannot fail this part, because season 2, part 1, oh boy, this is the turning point. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe give me a like and subscribe for some more That's How We Got Reincarnated Slime videos and the rest of the ultimate That's How We Got Reincarnated Slime review series in the future. Hope you guys loved it just as much as the first episode. And this is DK Guillotine, signing out.